Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Welcome everyone. Good to see you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Prabhu.
So tonight we are going to study the Nectar of Devotion. We'll continue with our study of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu summary study called the Nectar of Devotion, which is summarized by Srila Prabhupada. And tonight we will go through the introduction of the Nectar of Devotion. Now, the introduction is very important because in the Nectar of Devotion, there are, in this first side of the ocean, which means the eastern side of the ocean, as I was describing last week, the Nectar of Devotion is compared to be like an ocean. And the ocean has four sides, right? East, south, west, and north. So the eastern side of the ocean of the Nectar of Devotion is what we'll be covering in this Bhakti Shastri course, the first 150 pages of the Nectar of Devotion. Now, the eastern side of the ocean has four divisions, which are called waves. There are four waves of the Nectar of Devotion of the eastern side of the ocean. So the first is called Samanya Bhakti. Then there is Sadhana Bhakti. Then there is Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. So Samanya Bhakti means a general overview of devotional service. So this Samanya Bhakti part of the Nectar of Devotion is contained within the introduction and chapter 1 of the Nectar of Devotion. So the introduction and chapter 1 are very important because they give a general overview of devotional service. This is called Samanya Bhakti. So tonight we will study the introduction. And if you have any questions or comments as we go, then you can please ask. So the introduction begins, Prabhupada begins with Mangalacharan. Mangalacharan means Mangala, like we have Mangalati. Mangala. Mangala means auspicious, invoking auspiciousness. We need to invoke auspiciousness in our devotional service, in any endeavor that where we practice Krishna Bhakti. We need to invoke auspiciousness. Before we begin any service, we invoke auspiciousness. So the Mangalacharan, which is there in any Shastra, all Shastras have a Mangalacharan, which means they begin by invoking auspiciousness. Now, a Mangalacharan has three divisions or three parts. The first is Vastu Nidesh. The second is Namaskaram. And the third is Ashirvad. Now, the first part is called Vastu Nidesh. Vastu Nidesh means it defines the book's objective. So what is the objective of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion? Clearly, it is Krishna. It is Swayam Bhagavan. It is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan. He is the Vastu Nidesh. He is the objective of the book. So the Mangalacharan, the book begins, the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu begins with invoking auspiciousness or defining the objective. The objective is Swami Bhagavan. It is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is Sri Krishna himself. The second part of Mangalacharan is Namaskaram. Namaskaram means to offer obeisances. Namaskar. Namaste. We say Namaste Guru Rajaya, or we offer obeisances. Namaskara means to offer obeisances or respect. We pray, just like before we give a class, we pray. We say Om Gyan Timirandasya, and we say Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha. We invoke these prayers. Why? We're offering respect to great personalities to receive their benediction so that we can perform our service. So we need to do this whenever we do any service. We need to pray to our superiors so that we will receive their mercy so that we can perform our service properly. And the third element of Mangalacharan is Ashirvad. Ashirvad means giving benedictions or giving blessings. So then within the book, it will be stated that if you study this book nicely, you will receive these certain benedictions, these certain blessings in your devotional life. So this is how the introduction of the Nectar of Devotion begins. It is beginning with Mangalacharan, right? Defining the book's objective, offering obeisances, and giving benedictions or blessings. Now, the first paragraph of the introduction deals with the book's objective, which is Sri Krishna. Now, the first paragraph and the first verse of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, it defines the book's objective, and the first paragraph is a discussion or a Prabhupada summarizing or elaborating upon the first verse of the book. And it describes that the objective of the book is Lord Krishna, Swami Bhagavan. It is Krishna, the original personality of Godhead. He is the supreme personality of Godhead because he is the reservoir of all rasas. So in the Sanskrit, the first verse of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, it names Krishna as Acarya Rasamrita-murti, which means the reservoir of all rasas, the murti, the form of all rasas, ras amrita, the nectarian form of all rasa. That is Krishna. And, you know, I reflect on this sometimes. Why do we worship Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Why do we worship Krishna as supreme? Because he is the reservoir of all rasas. He is Rasa Raj. He is Rasika Shekhar. He is the one who supplies pleasure or rasa in every situation, in every relationship that he exchanges with. If there's no rasa in a relationship, the relationship becomes dry. As we defined last week in the preface, rasa means juice or taste or mellow. If there's no rasa or no taste or juice or mellow in the relationship becomes dry. It becomes unpalatable. It becomes unpalatable. It dries up. So how do we find rasa in a relationship? We exchange rasa. There are different types of rasas that we can exchange with others. And Lord Krishna, he exchanges the most rasa with the devotees, with his associates. Therefore, he is called the Acarya Rasamrita-Murti, which means he is the object of the book. The whole purpose of the book is that we re-establish our relationship with this Acarya Rasamrita-Murti, this original person who can satisfy us in every way and can fulfill us completely with his ability to stir the rasa, or to give rasa to others, give pleasure to others. So the first verse of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, I'll read you the English. It is actually quoted by Ramananda Roy in the Caitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8, Ramananda Samvad. So this is chapter 8 of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu. Chapter 8 of the Caitanya Charitamrita, verse number 142. Let Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, be glorified. By virtue of his expanding attractive features, he subjugated the gopis named Tarika and Pali, and absorbed Shama and Lalita. He is the most attractive lover of Srimati Radharani, and he is the reservoir of pleasure for all devotional mellows. So this is the object of the book. The object of the book is to re-establish our lost relationship with Krishna, who is the source of all pleasure, the source of all mellows. It specifically mentions, Rupa Goswami begins by mentioning that Krishna is the giver of pleasure to the gopis and ultimately to Srimati Radharani. So this is Rupa Goswami's contribution or gift to us, that he is explaining that the person that we are aiming to please and to reconnect with and reunite with is the lover of Srimati Radharani and the gopis. And this is the mood of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's why Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has given these teachings to Srila Rupa Goswami to then pass on to all of us through Srila Prabhupada, so that we may understand who this original person is that we are aspiring to connect with. So the second paragraph of the introduction is an elaboration of the second verse of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion. The second verse, I'll give the English of the second verse. This second verse is quoted in Majjha Lila, chapter 19, verse 134 of the Caitanya Charitamrita. Although I am the lowest of men, no knowledge, the inspiration to write transcendental literature about devotional service has been mercifully bestowed upon me. Therefore, I am offering my obeisances at the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has given me the chance to write these books. So, this is the Mangalacharan. Mangalacharan means we define the object of the book, and then we offer respects, we offer namaskaram, or we offer obeisances respects to the personalities whose by whose mercy we are able to complete any endeavor, by whose mercy we're able to engage in devotional service to Krishna. So he's offering obeisances to Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who personally taught him the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, and who inspired him and ordered him to write this book and other books. So in a similar way, Prabhupada writes that, let me offer my respectful obeisances. When Prabhupada writes his commentary, he says, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada, and Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Goswami, Prabhupada, by whose inspiration I have been engaged in the matter of compiling this summary of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu. So Prabhupada is following Rupa Goswami's lead and example that in the beginning of the book, you must offer obeisances, namaskaram, to your gurus, to your inspirations in devotional service. Rupa Goswami offers obeisances to Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada, writing the summary study of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, he is offering obeisances to Rupa Goswami and to his guru, Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So in the third paragraph, Rupa Goswami then offers obeisances to his guru. Prabhupada writes in the third paragraph, this is based on the third verse of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu. Srila Rupa Goswami begins his great book by offering his respectful obeisances unto Srila Sanatana Goswami, who is the elder brother and the spiritual master, and he prays that Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu may be very pleasing to him. So we know historically that Rupa and Sanatana Goswami were brothers. They were ordered by Caitanya Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan, which they did, and to write these Bhakti Shastras. So to be successful in any endeavor, you have to pray to Guru and Gauranga. Sri Guru Gauranga Jayate. Victory comes, or the ability to become successful in any of our services, that comes when we offer obeisances to Guru and Gauranga. So he offers obeisances to Srila Sanatana Goswami to receive his blessings. Now, the fourth paragraph, he continues to offer obeisances. Prabhupada writes, let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the great devotees and acharyas, holy teachers, who are compared to sharks in the great ocean of nectar, and who do not care for the various rivers of liberation. There's another very beautiful verse. For those of you who are joining late, this is recorded, and we will give you the link to the recordings so that you can access them, so that you can listen to them. Because for those who are just joining, we've covered quite a lot already. So you'll need to go back for your exam. You'll need to go back and revise what we've said. So he's offering obeisances to the great acharyas. And he compares them to sharks who reside in the devotion, the nectar of devotion, the ocean, the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, the ocean of the nectar of devotion. And he says they do not care for the rivers which run into the ocean, which may be compared to the rivers of liberation. In other words, a devotee is not interested in Sayuja Mukti. Sayuja Mukti means liberation into the form of the Lord, liberation into the Brahma Jyoti. That is called Sayuja Mukti. It's a type of liberation. A devotee is not interested in merging into the Brahma Jyoti, because if he merges into the Brahma Jyoti, this will be explained further in the book, then there is no opportunity left to serve Krishna. That's why, and I was studying this last night in our class on Chaitanya Charitamrita, that's why devotees are so opposed to Mayavad philosophy. I was explaining to Atuya that Prabhupada, Harisori Prabhu says that Prabhupada, not a day went by in the 15 months when Harisori Prabhu was with Prabhupada every day. He said, not a day went by when Prabhupada did not attack Mayavad. He's a Mayavad philosophy. Because the philosophy destroys, if one becomes a Mayavadi and impersonalist, he loses his opportunity to serve Krishna, which is the greatest misfortune. That's why Mayavad philosophy is so dangerous. So as devotees, we're so careful to avoid being influenced by Mayavad philosophy. So the great devotees who live in the ocean of the nectar of devotion, a shark does not care for the rivers. The sharks don't go up the rivers generally. Very rarely. Because there is so much sustenance for them, so much nourishment for them. In the ocean, there is no reason for them to travel up the rivers. So similarly, devotees get so much pleasure from serving Krishna in the ocean of the nectar of devotion, they have no need to go to other places towards impersonal philosophy or other spiritual schools of thought. Now, the Prabhupada explains in that fourth paragraph, the sharks who dwell in the ocean do not care for the rivers which are gliding down into it. They have no business with other processes which are compared to the rivers that only gradually come to the ocean. And the sharks, they swim deep within the ocean. And because they swim deep in the ocean, they do not get caught in the fishermen's nets, which are on the surface of the ocean. So similarly, Prabhupada explains that a devotee is not caught in the ocean of birth and death, just like a shark goes deep. So devotees, because they're deeply absorbed in devotional service to Krishna, they do not get caught in the net of repeated birth and death. They go deep, deep, deep into serving Krishna, and then they conquer birth and death in this material world. So then in the fifth paragraph, the fifth paragraph is a summary of the fifth verse of the Nectar of Devotion, of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu. And after offering obeisances, first he defined the object of the book, that is Krishna, Swami Bhagavan. Then he offers obeisances in 3 verses to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to Sanatana Goswami, to all the great acharyas and devotees. Now he gives benediction, Ashirvad, which is the third part of a Mangalacharan, or the third part of invoking auspiciousness in the beginning of a book. He invokes the protection of the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu from argumentative logicians. Prabhupada writes in the 5th paragraph. He compares the arguments of argumentative logicians, he compares their arguments and logic to volcanic eruptions in the midst of the ocean. In the midst of the ocean, volcanic eruptions can do very little harm. And similarly, those who are against the devotional service of the Lord and who put forward many philosophical theses about the ultimate transcendental realization cannot disturb this great ocean of devotional service. So that's a benediction which he gives. So basically, Rupa Goswami is encouraging us, as Prabhupada did. Prabhupada emphasized so much. We've spoken about this previously, that Prabhupada put so much emphasis on studying his books. That's why Prabhupada created these courses, which I've been fortunate to be a part of over the years. Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti-vedanta, Bhakti Sarvabhauma. These 4 degrees that Prabhupada spoke of and asked us, all the devotees in ISKCON, to attain by studying his books. If we study carefully the Nectar of Devotion and Prabhupada's books, we will not be influenced by other philosophies or other pseudo-spiritual teachers. So it's very important that we study Prabhupada's books on a regular basis. And that's why we have these courses, because it encourages and systematically allows devotees to study Prabhupada's books. And once you systematically study Prabhupada's books, then you don't become influenced by false philosophies. And then Prabhupada wanted us to be examined. That's why we have the exams. We have the Nectar of Instruction exam after we finish that, and then Ishopanishad exam. And now after this book, the Nectar of Devotion, we will have the Nectar of Devotion exam. And one thing I've noticed, I've been teaching these courses, these Shastri courses since 2002. I noticed that when the devotees have to sit exams, they study very carefully and very seriously. And quite often, just like in universities, we all know, many of you went to university, many of you got degrees. The style of many students is to cram at the last week, in the last week or the last weeks. They cram and they study to remember as much as they can in preparation for their exam. And I've noticed devotees do that. That's why Prabhupada instituted exams, because it makes the devotees study seriously, which is beneficial for the devotees to study seriously. In the 6th paragraph, Prabhupada says, he explains how Rupa Goswami expresses his humble sentiment and mood and inspiration to write the Nectar of Devotion, the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu. He shows his humility to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who instructed him, as we've mentioned last week. Lord Chaitanya personally instructed Rupa Goswami for 10 days in Prayag, Allahabad, at the Dashwamedha Ghat on the bank of the Ganges. Prabhupada writes, that should be the attitude of all preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement, following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami. We should never think of ourselves as great preachers, but should always consider that we are simply instrumental to the previous acharyas. And simply by following in their footsteps, we may be able to do something for the benefit of suffering humanity. So this is a very important point, because when we study, I went through this in the beginning of the course last year. Before we started the course, we did an overview class. So if you go back to the very beginning of the Upanishad, there was a introductory class. And in that introductory class, we covered the 12 aims of Shastric study, you may remember. And one of the aims is mood and mission. One of the reasons we study Prabhupada's books is so that we become proficient in the philosophy, so that we can then convince others about the Krishna conscious philosophy. Right? That's why we study, one reason, one of the 12 reasons of Shastric study. That's one of the reasons we study Prabhupada's books carefully, so that we can imbibe the mood to complete the mission or fulfill the mission of Prabhupada, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. I know for myself, the more I study, the more inspired I become to spread this movement, to spread this mission. So we should do that as devotees. We should become inspired to spread the mission. Now, Rupa Goswami explains his eagerness to write the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu. He explains that the reason he is inspired because he wants to please the devotees. That's called Vaishnav Seva. That is Lord Chaitanya's mood. You know, this is why I teach or facilitate these Shastric courses, because I want to please the devotees. I want to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead and my Guru and Gauranga. So all devotees, that is the mood of a devotee. The mood of a devotee is to please other devotees. That's why we study carefully the books, so that we can become inspired, and then we can inspire others. Now, verses 7 to 9 of the Nectar of Devotion, the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, they are described in the 7th paragraph of the Nectar of Devotion, of the introduction. Prabhupada says, originally in the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu, the ocean is divided like the watery ocean into east, south, west, and north. So I described this last week, right? The nectar, the book is, the analogy of the ocean is given in terms of how the book is structured and laid out. The ocean has 4 sides, right? East, south, west, north. So the book also has 4 divisions, and we are studying the Eastern Division. And the Eastern Division has 4 elements, as I described at the beginning of this class: Samanya Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti. So the introduction in the first chapter describes Samanya Bhakti, general characteristics of devotional service. Now, at the top of page 21, which is XX1 of the introduction, Srila Prabhupada begins to translate and explain the definition of Uttama Bhakti. Now, Maggie, please remind me to give the 4 key memory verses, which you'll need to memorize for the Nectar of Devotion exam, the Bhakti-rasmrta-sindhu. Now, the first verse that you'll need to memorize is this verse, which will now be discussed. And this verse is what we call the Paribhasa Sutra. A Paribhasa Sutra is a verse which is in the beginning of a book, which is the seminal verse or the emperor verse or the governing verse of the entire book. And if you're ever studying a book and you're losing context or you're losing the thread of where the philosophy of the book is going, if you refer back to this governing verse, then you will understand the context of the entire book. Does that make sense? So this verse is called Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Kamadyanavritam Anukuyena Krishnanushilanam Bhakti Uttama. You'll need to memorize this verse. Now, this verse is the perfect and pure definition of pure devotional service given by Rupa Goswami himself. So this is a perfect definition of pure devotional service that Rupa Goswami gives us. So now this verse will be unpacked. We'll understand the different elements of this verse. We need to memorize this verse and understand this verse because the whole Nectar of Devotion is based upon this verse, unpacking and elaborating upon this verse. And this verse is the seminal verse, or the Paribhasa Sutra, the governing verse of the whole book. So it is very important to understand it. Prabhupada translates the verse. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires. Knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy and fruitive actions. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. That's the perfect definition of devotional service. This verse can be found in the Madhya Lila, chapter 19, verse 167 of the Caitanya Charitamrita. So, in the Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada first gives what we call the primary characteristic. In Sanskrit, we call it Swarup Lakshana. Swarup Lakshana means the primary characteristic of the verse. This verse has primary characteristics and secondary characteristics. Swarup Lakshana and Tatashta Lakshana. So what are the primary characteristics of the verse? Prabhupada says in the paragraph, first-class devotional service is known by one's tendency to be fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, serving the Lord favorably. So there are three elements to the primary characteristics of bhakti. The first is devotional service is for the pleasure of Krishna. If devotional service does not please Krishna, it's not devotional service. You know, you can be very well intended. Like I'll give a simple example, which I'll give him many times, but it illustrates the point very nicely. One time, someone left a box in the Melbourne temple, a box on the altar in front of the deities. People bring gifts to the deities in the temple. So someone left a box. So the pujari in the temple, he took the box, took it into the paraphernalia room to see what was in the box, what sort of gift had been given to the deities. Now, the person who offered the box obviously did it with favorable intent. They wanted to please Krishna. But when the pujari, the priest, opened the box, he saw it was a box. And all of us know, because we've been trained in devotional service, you would never offer Krishna a box of cigars because Krishna does not smoke cigars. He does not take pleasure in the gift. So the gift was given favorably with good intention, but it did not please Krishna. So devotional service must have both of these elements. It must be favorably practiced or favorably executed, but it must also be pleasing to Krishna. So that is the first element of pure devotional service. It must be pleasing to Krishna. The second element of pure devotional service is it is an active engagement, right? Devotional service is active, right? That's why Prabhupada gives the definition of devotional. So bhakti is devotional service, uttama bhakti. Pure devotional service must be active. You can't just think all day, let me serve Krishna. You have to do something for Krishna. Of course, we'll learn later on, one of the 64 angas of bhakti is manasa seva, but you have to be very advanced if you're going to do manasa seva all the time. And even very advanced devotees, they don't just do manasa seva, they render practical service to Krishna. The third element of pure devotional service is it must be executed with a favorable intent. So it must be pleasing to Krishna, it must be active, and it must be done with a favorable intent. Like if you're doing service, someone says to you, please go and wash the pots. So you go and you start washing the pots, but you're thinking, why do I have to do this service? I hate this service. The service is pleasing to Krishna because you're washing his pots, but you're not doing it favorably. Therefore, it cannot be classified as pure devotional service. Does it make sense? So Rupa Goswami is giving us the basic definition, the pure definition, the perfect definition of pure devotional service. So, Prabhupada says in the purport, when we speak of Krishna, we refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead along with his many expansions. So it's important to understand that devotional service for us is for the pleasure of Krishna because he is our Ishtadev. He is the Lord of our heart. But if someone is a Narayan Bhakta, worships Lakshmi Narayan in Vaikuntha, or Nrsingadev, or Lord Ram, or Parashuram, or Varahadev, or Vamana, or Korma, any of the forms of the Lord, that is also pure devotional service. When we say Krishna Anushilanam, Krishna means Krishna and his expansions. That means any form of Krishna that you worship, that is pure devotional service. Then Prabhupada says, generally, however, we should understand Krishna to mean Krishna and his personal expansions. So Krishna includes all such expansions as well as his pure devotees. So Krishna Anushilanam, it refers to Krishna even when you worship or serve Krishna's pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada or our gurus. That is also pure devotional service by this definition that Rupa Goswami has given. And Prabhupada explains further on that by serving Krishna's paraphernalia, tadiyanam samacharam, tadiya, those things related to Krishna, Krishna's paraphernalia, to look after Krishna's paraphernalia, that is also pure devotional service. You know, for example, some of us are living here in Hare Krishna Valley. So to look after this dham, this holy place, you know, even to service the tractor, because it's Krishna's tractor, it is his paraphernalia used for his service. That is also pure devotional service by definition. So all the service we do is for the pleasure of Krishna. Now we have this word in the Paribhasa Sutra, in the verse of pure devotional service that we're discussing, anushilanam. Anushilanam. Prabhupada writes, the particular word used by Srila Rupa Goswami in this connection is anushilana, or cultivation by following the predecessor acharyas. As soon as we say cultivation, we refer to activity. Without activity, consciousness alone cannot help us. You know, a very powerful point. Devotional service means you have to offer service to Krishna. You have to serve Krishna's devotees. That's what it means to be a devotee. You offer service to Krishna's devotees. Now, Anushilan, this word is extremely important. It means to follow. Anu, Krishna, Anu, Shilanam, Bhakti Uttama. Anu means small. Anu also means followers, to follow. And this word is used in many places in our philosophy, in very important verses and very important places in our philosophy. It's an extremely important word. We are Anu. Anu means Anuga. Rup Anuga. Prabhupada Anuga means we are followers. Pure devotional service means to follow in the footsteps of Krishna and Krishna's pure devotees. That's how we learn to serve Krishna. This will be explained by Rupa Goswami as the book goes on. You must serve Krishna by serving Krishna's devotees. How will you learn to serve Krishna? Only when you serve Krishna's devotees, that's all. You have to follow in their footsteps. You have to learn the mood of serving Krishna and how to please Krishna through following his devotees. Now, Prabhupada explains there are two types of anushilana. Pravriti, which means activities that are favorable to Krishna consciousness, and nivriti, which means avoiding activities which are unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. So this will be explained more as the book goes on. So the word shilanam when it's connected to the word anushilanam, Krishna anushilanam, Bhakti Uttama, it means pleasing Krishna, giving service to Krishna. Now, there's so much here. I'm just trying to pick out the most important, because actually the time we have is not enough to go through everything. So I'm just trying to decipher what is the most important things to present. Prabhupada explains on page 22 of the introduction, XX11, we can offer services with our bodily activities, but all such activities must be in relationship with Krishna. This relationship is established by connecting oneself with the bona fide spiritual master, who is the direct representative of Krishna in disciplic succession. Anushilanam means to serve Krishna through your guru, through parampara. Prabhupada explains further down, page 22. Any activities done in devotional service or in Krishna consciousness are directly under the control of spiritual energy. Devi Prakriti. Mahatmanas tumam parta, Devim Prakritim ashritaha. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. The Devi Prakriti. The devotees are under the influence of the internal energy. That's what devotional service does to us. It places us within the internal energy, which gradually purifies us and lifts us out of the influence of the external energy, the material energy. Prabhupada then says, in other words, energy is a sort of strength, and this strength can be spiritualized by the mercy of both the bona fide spiritual master and Krishna. Now, the word anukuyena, the phrase Krishna Anushilanam, which is in this verse, we've defined that as being devotional service is an activity for the pleasure of Krishna. Now, the word anukuyena. Anukul means favorable. And devotional service must be done, as we've said, with favorable intent. So, if devotional service is not done with favorable intent, then it doesn't please Krishna. Now, these were the primary characteristics. Now, the secondary characteristics mentioned in the verse, the Tatashta Lakshana, they will now be explained. On page 21, XX1, Prabhupada says, pure devotional service should be freed from the desire for any material benefit or for sense gratification, as these desires are cultivated through fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. In order to keep the purity of such Krishna conscious activities, one must be freed from all material desires and philosophical speculation. This is the secondary aspect. The principal aspect of the verse is you must serve Krishna favorably and please him. The secondary characteristic is that it must be free from extraneous desires. So there are two secondary characteristics mentioned in this verse. The first is anyabhilashita shunyam. Pure devotional service must be free from ulterior motive. If we're doing devotional service so we can receive money, for example, some devotees to perform devotional service. If a devotee is doing devotional service, but he's doing it because he's receiving the wage, that's not pure devotional service. You may receive a wage, within ISKCON because you're a minister of religion and you're an employee of ISKCON and you're serving. You get that, but if that's your motive for doing the service, that's not pure devotional service. And the secondary characteristic, which is mentioned, is jnana kamadya navritam, which means devotional service must not be covered by philosophical or fruitive pursuits. In other words, if there's some Mayavad philosophy mixed in with your devotional service, that's not pure devotional service. If there's some desire for sense gratification in our service, that's not pure devotional service. What's an example? An example is you may cook a nice offering for the deities, but you're thinking, oh, I will enjoy the offering as soon as Krishna is finished with it, as soon as the offering is done, That is not pure devotional service. Right? Some devotees don't even touch the offering after they've cooked and offered it to Krishna. They cook delicious things for Krishna, they offer it, and then they don't eat it. They don't honor the prasad because they feel, no, it's just for Krishna's pleasure. Some devotees do that. But the point is that we should be free from material motivations while doing devotional service. Prabhupada says on page 24, XX1V, Anyabhilashita shunya means you should be devoid of any other desire. Any desire except for the service of the Lord is called material desire. Now, Anyabhilashita shunya means that sometimes there are desires which might be material. For example, here's a nice example to understand this point. We may be in a life-threatening situation where it looks like we're about to leave our body as devotees. Sometimes we may find ourselves in a situation and you feel like, oh, I'm in a dangerous situation. I may leave my body at this point. And you pray to Krishna, Krishna, save my body. I don't want to die. Now, that's not a pure prayer because you're asking for something from Krishna. But that particular example, as an example, that is not contrary to pure devotional service. Because if you are asking Krishna, please save this body, so I can now continue my service to you, that is not against pure devotional service. So does it make sense? Sometimes we may even ask for material things, but only in the sense that we want to continue to serve Krishna more. So it's not pure, but it's not against pure devotional service, if that makes sense. That's called Anyabhilashita shunya. Shunya means you must be free from material desires. Anyabhilashita means, but certain material desires can be dovetailed in Krishna's service, like asking for your life to be saved, if you're going to continue to serve Krishna. Prabhupada says on page 24, once again, there are many persons who are very much attracted to the ritualistic activities described in the Vedas. But one becomes attracted simply to ritualistic activities without understanding Krishna. But if one becomes attracted simply to materialistic activities without understanding Krishna, his activities are unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. So this is the same that Rupa Goswami taught, niyamagraha. Niyamagraha means you might be doing the activity not to please Krishna, but just because you're performing some ritual. That is not pure devotional service. Prabhupada says, actually, Krishna consciousness can be based simply on hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. Besides which, everything done is unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. Thus, one should always be guarding against fall downs. So the best way to keep ourselves pure, Prabhupada is saying, is to always hear and chant and remember about Krishna. And then we won't get affected by material desires in our devotional service. So then, at the very end of this section, the verse is quoted, which is also one of your key memory verses. Sarva pati vinimuktam Tat Paratwena Nimalam, Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevana Bhakti Uchate. This verse is given by Narad Muni in the Narada Pancharatra. And this verse is also a definition of pure devotional service. Sarvopadi Vinir Muktam means devotional service must be free of all external designations or parties. Tat Paratwena Nimalam, it must be pure, free from material conditioning. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevana Bhakti Uchate. It must be engaged in simply to satisfy the senses of Krishna. That is another definition of pure devotional service, which supports Rupa Goswami's definition. So we'll stop here. Next week, we will cover chapter 1 of the Nectar of Devotion. Does anyone have any questions or comments on anything we discussed? Okay, thank you all for joining. So your homework is to read chapter 1 for next week. The recording of tonight's class will be up in a few days. The recording of last week's class should be up. I'll send the link. If you want to remind me also to send the link, I'll make sure you get it so that you can, because some of you missed the beginning of the class. This whole class was very important. There's a lot of key information in this particular class, so you'll need to study it and revise it carefully. Okay, we'll see you soon. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Good to see you all.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
See you on Saturday.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thanks, Keshava.
Thank you for coming. We'll see you next week. Keep up
Very
with
well.
your studies.
Yeah.
Hari Bol Mani Griva Prabhu
Ibo.
from the other side of the earth.
How do you get out?
Okay. Just press the red cross at the bottom.